Hi everybody, Vivek here from Meaningful Ideas and Gentle Parents Unite. And today I'm going to be talking about something I call micro-connections. Micro-connections are when we take small moments throughout the day and we create connection with our kids. It's not about spending a lot of time. Micro-connections are everyday moments. So I do a coaching call with the parents I support every Monday night. And before we go into the coaching call, I give a little talk about some aspect of gentle parenting. This week, the one I talked about was micro-connections. So they're really useful, really powerful, and when you get into the habit of them, they actually really transform your relationship with your kids. It's an amazing thing. So I'm going to let you listen to the talk that I gave last Monday, and I would love to hear what you think about it. If you'd like to join me on these coaching calls or on the live classes that I give or the meditations that I do for parents, please check out gentleparentsunite.com/membership. That's where we host all of our events, and you can join us. I host it with my colleague and business partner and friend, Sujai Johnson, who's quite the amazing, brilliant, wise person. And together we support parents through challenging times. So on to the talk. Let me know what you think about micro-connections. Welcome to the coaching call, everybody. It's another Monday night, and I'm always happy to be here with you on Mondays. Every night, almost every evening, pretty much every evening, we have family time around here. Usually it's somewhere around 6 to 10 p.m. And we all gather and we eat together and we watch shows together and we talk about our day and whatever. And it's something that I have been very, very adamant that I protect. Even when I get busy and lots of work to do and lots of events or workshops or people inviting me to do things and coaching calls, whatever it is, I try and block off that 4 hours in the evening so that we can have that time together. But the amount of time that I'm able to be here is really precious for me, is really important for me. I think that one thing about connecting with our kids is it doesn't always have to be something that's dramatic. It doesn't always have to be something big. It's, that sense of placing importance on connection. I think kids really feel that. And micro connections is something that is really, really valuable, really useful. It's part of SMABO. So SMABO is one of my acronyms that stands for Small Moments Affect Big Ones. So micro connections are really useful. Micro connections are a way of creating and nourishing the feeling of being connected with people. With kids specifically, of course, because we're talking about parenting here, but with people in general, micro-connections are a way of keeping that connection alive. And a lot of the time, if, with parents who and families who have multiple kids, and especially with new babies on the way, those micro-connections can be a lifesaver in a lot of ways because we hear all the time in Gentle Parents Unite that when there's multiple kids, they often don't feel like they get the connection that they need. And realistically, when you have multiple kids, they're not all going to get the connection that they need. That's kind of part of life. It's kind of part of living in community in general. That is, we're never able to give 100% of all of our needs met. We're not going to be able to get 100% of all of our needs met. Even one person on their own isn't going to be able to get 100% of their needs met. And then when you have 2, and then when you have 3, and then when you have 4, each time more people are added to the community, to the mix, it becomes harder for each person to get their needs met. And even if we're all working on it together, it's still hard because there's competing needs a lot of the time, And sometimes those competing needs are age or development oriented. Sometimes they're preference oriented. Sometimes competing needs are, what am I looking for? Like sensory oriented. Like some people need sound and some people need quiet, for example. And in something just as direct as that, you have competing needs there, and that can be something that's really challenging to work out. I think for kids, one of the things that really helps is when they feel that we're working towards and really deeply caring about their needs. And I think that's something that's really important. And micro-connections are something that can really help with that. So a micro-connection is where you use each little moment that you interact with your kid to strike up some kind of connection with them. Make some kind of deeper interaction. And I have trained myself to do this so that with my kid, every time we pass each other, almost every time we pass each other, there's some kind of moment that I put real awareness into so that she feels me. She feels my tending to her, my caring for her, my interest in her. And I, of course, I try and do that with my partner as well. And these things add up, you know. One of the things about SMABO, small moments affect big ones, is the small moments add up. And we can ignore those small moments day after day, you know, and we lose a lot of the opportunity to make those conscious layers, because the layers do build up. And whether we're paying attention to them or not, the layers are building. The layers are always building. And so for me, whenever I notice something like that, I always think, well, if they're building anyways, how can I engage with that process as consciously as I can to help nurture the results that I want, the relationship that I want, the feelings that I want, the environment that I want, the experience that I want. And that's why the micro practices are really useful, you know, the micro meditation, the micro self-compassion, and the micro self-observation. Those are really useful practices because they're like the micro meditation, for example, is a one breath meditation, and you just do it throughout the day. When you have like a moment, just take literally one breath. We often say, I don't even have a chance to take one breath. But if you actually think of it as actually one breath, there are lots of little moments we can take that one conscious breath. And micro meditations are really great. And if you look on my YouTube channel, you can find the video I did on micro meditations. A micro connection is kind of like that. A micro connection is where we really turn on our awareness for moments of connection. And so, for example, my daughter walks into the kitchen to get something to eat, and I'm sitting at my desk. I will run in to get a glass of water. I mean, I probably want water anyways, but even if I don't, I'll run in to get a glass of water, and I'll like bump up against her, or I'll ask her what she's eating. And most of the time, I have to go to the kitchen anyways because I'm always wanting to go to the kitchen and eat something. But I'll take that opportunity to make that connection. I'll take that opportunity to have a human moment. And it seems like, you know, connection has to be a big thing, but it's actually the natural human moments that we have with our kids that really add up. And I do this, like I said, I do the same with my partner. Whenever we are in the same vicinity, I try and make sure that there's a moment, at least a moment of connection, a moment of seeing, where I see her and I tune into her and I let her know that, you know, so that she feels my presence. And those moments, when they happen on a regular basis, they really affect the nervous system. They affect the way a person feels when they're in your presence. Because there's a part of them, unconscious, that has a sense that, oh, I'm going to have this experience when this person's around. And it's not something that they necessarily have to think consciously about, but unconsciously, that's the reaction that they have because of the layers, right? And of course, the opposite is also true, that if they have a fairly consistent experience of, let's say, less connected experiences, then what I call reliable unpleasantness, then that's what they end up having in their nervous system. And of course, life is always a mix of the two. It really is, because none of us are perfect, and we all are always learning and growing, and we have our own stuff from the past, and that stuff can interfere with us acting in alignment with our deepest values. And being on the gentle parenting path means we're working on it. We're working on operating from our values, operating from the mindset, operating from connection, and always trying to do more and more and more. So of course life is, like I said, it's always going to be a mixture of the two. Our conscious effort is in increasing the amount of connection moments. Micro connections are one of the big ways that we can do that. And so, you know, with little kids, if a little kid comes running by, I'm always going to say something about I'm always going to make some kind of connection or comment about them. If I'm sitting with them, I'll make sure not too long goes by without my saying something. You know, I always saying something, doing something, throwing something at them, playing with a toy, something like that. Something that gets me on their radar as a positive influence, you know. And this is the thing. I want to be paying attention to the layers. What layer am I building in this moment? What layer am I contributing to? And by asking that question of myself, it helps me really tune into being very conscious about my interactions. And I want to try and be conscious. You know, a lot of the time when life is challenging and difficult and we're stressed, we don't act as consciously. That's natural. And acting consciously is a practice, however, is something we can practice and get better at and improve on and evolve. And I think that if we practice that during small moments, of course, when big moments come, it's even easier. Another example is so this is like the first examples were me like intentionally going towards my partner, going towards my kid and doing the micro connections. The other is how we receive them when they do something with us and when they share something with us, say something to us, ask something of us. So if a kid asks me for a glass of water, we can say, sure, I'll get you a glass of water. Or we can say, I'd love to get you a glass of water. And, or I'm going to run to the kitchen right now. And it's like, you know, or depending on the age of the kid and the temperament, I might stand up on the couch and jump off to get them a glass of water. It doesn't take any extra time really, you know. Or I might pick up a ball on my way and toss it at them and say, catch, quick, think quick. And, but not once in a while. Like the micro connections are about doing that like consistently, you know. And if they share something with you, to be really interested, even if it doesn't always take a lot longer to be really interested. That's more of an attitude thing. To be really, really interested and to project that interest, to project that there's meaning there for you. And again, I'm not talking about when they come to you with a big revelation. I'm talking about everyday things, you know. And this connects to the video that I gave, that I did a few months ago on play, which gets shared fairly frequently in the Becoming Gentle group. I think if you go to the group, you can just search for the word play and that video will come up. And I go on for 90 minutes about how to increase your capacity to play with your kids. And one of the things I talk about is also SMABO, because SMABO is like everything. And I say you can use the small moments of life to increase your experience of play with your kids. Find little things to play with. Find everyday moments to play. Things that you normally are just doing, do them in a spirit of play. Well, this is kind of similar. You can do it in a spirit of connection. Do it in a spirit of validation. Do it in a spirit of celebration, you know. And this can make a huge, huge difference to how kids feel. Another micro connection is gratitude. When we express gratitude to our kids and let them know that they've impacted us positively, because that's kind of what gratitude is, right? I'm grateful for this positive impact. When we express that gratitude to them, it really has an impact. It has an impact because they feel valued, important, worthy, like they're contributing, like they belong. Yeah? And these are really powerful feelings for young people, especially in a world where everybody is, you know, twice their size, 3 times their size, and everything is so big. I mean, we often forget when we see kids running around, we often forget how big everything is to them, you know, and how time is different for them too. Like I'm 52. So a year can go, if I don't pay attention, a year can go by without even me noticing, you know. And, but for a kid, like for a 2-year-old, 1 year is half their life. For a 4-year-old, it's a quarter of their life. You know, that's 12 years from me. And so for young people, they have a different sense of time because of how much hasn't passed yet, right? And so, this is one of the reasons that when we take those small moments, they mean so much to them. And that sense of belonging, we can help them feel that sense of belonging from an early age. I myself, in so many, I'm hesitant to say all, but I'll say in so many areas of my life, in so many of my social circles, even with the people that love me and adore me, a lot of the time I don't feel like I belong. I don't feel like I have a real place. I don't feel like my place is secure, you know? And a lot of that comes from not feeling that as a child. And so the micro connections are a way of helping our kids really feel like they belong. You know, how often do we hear parents say, the thing, as long as they're in my house, they're going to do things my way. And I always feel like there's like a deep sense of not belonging when parents say that kind of thing, because if it's your house, that means it's not their house equally, which means what is their house? What is their home? A lot of kids are homeless in their own home because it's not their home. It's their parents' home. And I didn't want my kid to feel that, right? So the sense of belonging is another one that we can really help our kids feel. You know, not anytime we notice that we're putting that separation, that's a good time to stop and then refocus on a micro connection in those moments. And micro connections are always available to us. That's the wonderful thing about them, you know. Yes, a lot of these skills sometimes can feel artificial or forced at first if you're not used to doing it. And any skill is challenging and awkward at first when we first start to learn it. You know, like I'm relearning how to juggle right now. My kid is quite good at juggling. I'm relearning how to juggle right now. And where are those juggling balls anyways? I wanted to keep practicing. And so I'm relearning how to juggle right now. And I'm dropping the balls all over the place right now. I actually juggle standing over the couch so I don't have to bend all the way down to the floor to pick them up, because I know I'm going to drop them all the time. And it's one of the ways it's one of those little Vivek strategies that I use to be kind to myself, so I don't have to always pick it up off the floor. I do it over the couch. And so when I'm juggling, it's awkward and I'm making lots of mistakes and I'm dropping them and they go flying this way and that way, and one goes this way and one goes that way, and I have to go retrieve them. But I know that if I keep practicing, I'm going to get better. I'm going to get better and I'll get more smooth and the transitions will be more natural, and after a while I probably won't even have to think about it. Sometimes if we feel like we're trying too hard, sometimes that can come from fear, like we're trying to do the connection because we're afraid of not having connection, or we're afraid of somebody maybe is feeling disconnected, and we're like have this almost panic that we have to get reconnected. And when we do things from that fearful place, it can feel like there's a pressure, you know, and it can also feel, the pressure can also come if we're expecting a result, if we're expecting a certain kind of reaction. And that can feel pressure too. So this kind of stuff really, it really is most effective if we offer those connection moments from maybe a more relaxed place, and also not expecting a response or a reaction. It's like apologizing and expecting forgiveness, right? It's kind of the same kind of thing. And I think that can make a difference to how we're received. So micro connections are similar. If you're not used to doing micro connections, if you're not used to using little moments, opening a door, picking up the toy, and getting the glass of water, cleaning up the food, cleaning up the dishes, you know, bedtime. I guess bedtime is often more of a connection time. But you know, even with bedtime, there's a lot of struggles parents have with bedtime, and parents and kids have with bedtime. And a lot of that can be mitigated with multiple micro connections throughout the day. Because when we do those things, it fills a kid's cup up. Instead of trying to fill it up like half at a time, we fill it up a few drops at a time. But still, after a whole day of that, there is a sense that there's been some cup filling going on. If your kids go to school, or if they go to another home for a time and they come back and there's a need to reconnect, that's another time micro connections can be really useful. Because again, when they first walk into the door, there's this moment of connection, then suddenly life, busy life, going, doing. And we can forget about so many opportunities for those connections. But if we put the awareness on them and we bring our awareness down to a millimeter level where we're really watching each moment, we can get so much more in that way. And then what happens is when the big moments come, because we've been practicing with the micro connections, and number two, because we've built the layers with the micro connections, when the big moments come, we have much more capacity and have a much better foundation to create bigger connections and to have bigger, like a deeper awareness. It's like the other day, my wife was sharing with me this creative project that she wants to do. And I know that when you're doing a creative project and someone says something negative, even slightly, it can really, especially someone you respect and trust, but even if it's not that, even if it's a stranger, but especially if it's someone you respect and trust, it can put a real damper on a creative project. And it's a very vulnerable thing to share a creative project with somebody because you're kind of giving them access to that, That's why often I will keep things to myself for quite a while until I feel a bit confident, and then I share it. And then I'll share it with like my inner circle first, people I trust and I know I can reasonably rely on for a positive reaction. But even there, if it's not something people practice, they can say something like, "Oh, why don't you think of doing it this way instead?" And then like my weeks or whatever of dreaming about it's crashed, and it's challenging, and we have to work through it. And so when my wife came to me and said, "Oh, I'm thinking of this," immediately because I know this, I did what I call turning on my laser eyes. I turned on my laser eyes and I was really focused, and I was watching my thoughts, and I was watching my reactions, and I was watching her, and I was watching what she was saying, and I was paying real attention, and everything that she said, I passed it through the filter of making sure that I was reflecting positive encouragement to her. It doesn't mean you don't give feedback about creative projects, but when someone's first telling me that's not the time that I want to do it, the feedback will come later, right? Of course there's going to be feedback. If she wants me to be part of it, which she does, giving feedback is an important part of working together. But we have to know when, right? And the sensitive moments are not the time. And so in that moment, everything that she said, I reflected it back with enthusiasm. I added some of my own, not ideas, but like my own enthusiasm, my excitement for it. I'll be like, yeah, that really could help people. Oh, I can see how that would really connect with the kids. And I was like, just like that, right? Like really doing those connections. And it was a bit of a longer conversation, and I could tell that the reason I tuned in as quickly as I did, and the reason I was able to hold that focus through that whole conversation, was because of my micro practices, because I also do the validation as part of my micro connection practice. So that's all I want to say about that today. I want to really encourage you to work on that, to work on micro connections, to work on increasing your frequency of them. Look for different moments. Look for when you really don't want to do it too. And that's when you might need a little extra loving for yourself, right? When you're like, I don't want to do another micro connection. So then you might need to fill up your own cup a little bit, right? You might need to give yourself some micro connection, do some micro compassion, micro meditations, whatever you need to do. The talk I gave last week, which I already posted in the group, was on how to do self-care in the midst of a busy and stressful life. And so you can listen to that for the ideas around that to kind of replenish. So what I really want to encourage you to do, though, is to practice this. Try and practice this week. See if you can find all sorts of little moments to do micro connection where you wouldn't have done it before, where you wouldn't have noticed it before. And it might seem hard, and like I said before, it might seem a little bit forced, like the juggling, but keep practicing, keep looking for those moments, keep throwing them out there. And don't worry if your kid doesn't respond right away, because again, you're building layers. That's the whole idea. And I think that if you practice that and you work on it, that you'll find that it makes a difference, especially once those layers start to get built, especially once they start to really feel it in their in their system, that they know that that's going to happen, that they get used to it. What a wonderful thing to get used to. And then when they're in your presence, it's like this whole other vibration exists. This whole other dynamic exists that we create through doing that. So that's it. That's what I want to talk about. Micro connections. I love them, practice them, love them, embrace them. Notice what kind of effect it has.